We're about to get to Purim, to celebrate Purim. Purim is March 6th and 7th. March 6th at an evening we hear the Megillah, the story of Purim, and then March 7th we hear the Megillah again. We celebrate, we have a festive meal. We go beyond ourselves, we dress up, we celebrate and we're merry. Why are we happy? Why are we so excited? What's the message of Purim? Purim has many messages. It's a jolly celebration, but with much, much depth. In fact, the Kabbalists say that Purim and Yom Kippurim are very similar. Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, and Purim, Day of Celebration, are very much the same for many different reasons. If you come to on Saturday, we'll talk more about this. One of the messages of Purim, which is very important for our days in everyday life. A few weeks ago, we spoke about the bill that we're trying to push through in the legislature about teaching about the Holocaust in the school system in New Mexico. Unfortunately, that bill wasn't brought to the table, so people try to usurp it, people try to change it, and unfortunately it's been tabled. What can we do about anti-Semitism? So there's the channels that we do. We go to the legislatures, we encourage people to study about the Holocaust, to know about the atrocities of anti-Semitism. But how do we really combat anti-Semitism? How do we deal with things that are against us and things in the world? So the fascinating part of the story of Purim, when Mordechai, the great Jewish leader, hears about the decree of Haman to annihilate the Jewish people, he runs in the middle of the city, puts on sackcloth, rends his garments, and he cries. And when his cousin Esther, the queen, wants to find out more about this, she calls him, "Please, Mordechai, come talk to me. What's going on? Why are you so upset?" But Mordechai says, "I can't come to the king's palace with the way I look. You're not allowed to go into the king's palace when you have torn clothes and sackcloth." So she sends him some clothes to dress him and to go have the meeting and to discuss what's happening. And Mordechai says, "I don't want your clothes, I don't want to meet with you. You must go to the king and plead on behalf of the Jewish people." And the question is like this: if Esther is supposed to go to the king, and Mordechai wants her to go to the king because that's a channel that's going to save the Jewish people, why is Mordechai crying in the middle of the streets? He should put that aside and go run to Esther and to have a discussion and try to figure out how to save the Jews. Instead, he goes crying and he just sends a message to Esther. And when it comes to Esther, Esther says, "You know what? I can't go to the king because the king is not happy with me. I haven't seen him in 30 days. And if I go unannounced, we know who this king is. He's going to kill me. I'm putting my life in danger." And Mordechai says, "You have to do it anyways. You have to save the Jewish people. Even though the Jewish people will be saved other ways, if not for you, you must do it for your own purpose." And she turns around to Mordechai and says, "Gather all the Jews and fast for me 3 days and 3 nights to overcome for eating at the meal at the feast of Achashverosh a few years ago. And I will also fast," says Esther. And they all fasted for 3 days and 3 nights. And Esther came to the king at the end of the 3 days. And she pleaded with the king, and miraculously the king agreed to get rid of Haman, and the Jews were saved. But the question is, why did Esther fast? If the Jews have to fast for atonement and for prayer, shouldn't she be beautifying herself? Since isn't her part of the mission to go before the king and find favor in his eyes? Why is she fasting? Because Mordechai, and this is the message for our life as well, Mordechai and Esther knew that the real issue is to find favor in the king, the ultimate King of Kings, our Father in heaven. For whatever reason, the Jews were laxed, and they needed to atone for their sins, atone for their shortcomings, and reconnect. And they did. Once that was taken care of, the Achashverosh here below, the king here below, has little say, and he'll overcome the decree. So Esther wasn't concerned so much as finding favor in the king here below. She wanted to find favor in our Father in heaven. Therefore, she fasted and prayed together with the Jewish people. And the same thing with us. To overcome anti-Semitism, we have to be more Jewish. We have to be stronger Jews, be more Jewish, more Torah, more mitzvahs, helping others, helping ourselves, being spiritual, godly, mitzvot, and so on. The other channels are secondary to making this thing happen, to protecting us and saving us, as been the case for 3,000 years. May we all experience a very joyous Purim, really connect deeply within us, and overcome all our enemies. Haman.